Okay, we are live. Ips Evening Deprogram for 10/16/2024. It's just after 8 p.m. Mountain Time. And that is Murder Hornets, World War III. I'll put the video in the links below. I'll open up phones here momentarily if anybody has anything to comment on. We're operating with a better system, louder mic, so it's hopefully better. One of the topics is something someone in chat told me to look into, and it was a number of comments from a QAnon person called Trader Girl Q. Trader Girl Q is living what I call the MSM Plus nightmare. And so the article, you may have received it if you subscribe to the newsletter, is a Hopium Addict's Lament. Now, I described 3 frames of reference when it comes to consuming media. And most of you already know that it's MSM, MSM plus, MSM minus. Briefly explained, the first one, the mainstream mediated mind, is the lowest common denominator perspective. They just believe at face value everything that's on the screen. MSM plus is alternative media, encompassing the conspiratorial, the woke. Both of these add to the mainstream. They look deeper to find more satisfying narratives because they realize that the MSM version is not telling the full story. The third category, and that would be us, is the MSM minus. And this view rejects the mainstream claims at face value. This is where we say, fake until proven real. And this is not too stringent a standard in today's world. Fake until proven real, especially now, as we see on Twitter, where you can't tell if it's a real crisis actor or a CGI crisis actor. Now, I'm just saying that we are the ones insisting on reality testing, and we reject claims that we find no backing for. So the consequence of being MSM is you're dependent on government media. Like your worldview is mostly, your perception is outsourced to a large degree. And the mainstreamers will fear what they're told to fear. They're totally compliant with everything. The MSM minus position, which is what we advocate here, is one that includes a great deal of skepticism about what we're shown, but also brings in an awareness about the use of psychological operations and crisis actors, psyops, hoaxes. Standard operating procedure. This isn't anomalous behavior from the media. It's how they operate. But it's the skeptical view that leaves us believing less. And the skeptic fears less the more they know, which is a better position than what I consider to be the worst place to be on the world stage, and that is MSM+. Truthers live in a parallel nightmare universe. And this results in a tendency to formulate conspiracy theories about who controls the world, and then obsessively promoting this idea online through doom scrolling, and kind of a form of wokeism. I call it alt-woke. So here's an example of a typical MSM news consumer's perspective. And you can find this blog at timosman.blog. The typical MSM news consumer, and I'm not being hyperbolic, I'm not exaggerating when I say they live in a nightmare. So here's an individual, goes by Trader Girl Q. And again, I want to point out that awake, like as in red pillars are awake, it's analogous to woke, but from a right-wing perspective. So this person, first of all, says that being awake is harder than childbirth and war. It's harder than war. These digital soldiers, they're really fighting. Their thumbs are so sore. It's harder than childbirth. And she says she's been waiting for 7 years for some, quote, booms. Now, what are booms? Booms are wins from the perspective of QAnon, meaning the white hats are winning. So a boom. We haven't really seen one yet, so we don't know, but I'm sure she's just expecting it in about 2 weeks. So here's what she says. I truly hope we're at the end of the never-ending story, because being awake is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I spent a year deployed in the Middle East. I went through childbirth twice. I feel more at war in my own country than I did deployed. It's no wonder many choose to stay asleep, especially when many of us have been waiting 7 years for booms. I pray it happens soon. So when she says she's praying for booms, what does that mean? Well, she's referring to mass executions of the deep state, Democrats, the return of Jesus Christ, or JFK Jr., or all three. And along with this is free money for all mankind in the form of a universal basic income, which right-wingers are against, but there are for this one, which is called Nasara Gasara. Sounds like a magic incantation, but it's some kind of scheme by which you're going to get back all the money that the deep state stole from you before you were born. Now, she describes losing her family and friends, and she lost the ability to enjoy life. Movies and music have been ruined for her now, because now she knows it's all really just about child sacrifice and adrenochrome. Now, she doesn't mention skyphobia in this particular rant, but I'm certain she fears clouds, and she's convinced that hurricanes are man-made, while she also rejects climate change science. So let's continue here, because she can't even shop anymore. Shopping has been ruined. Trader Girl Q says, the hardest part about waking up has been the rip in relationship with my friends and family. It gets harder when they took away everything I used to enjoy and tainted it. My favorite Halloween movie has been ruined because I see Hocus Pocus is about adrenochrome. I can't watch any movie without pointing out symbolism and conspiracies now. Many musicians and songs have been ruined. I've had to turn my brain off to enjoy music artists. I'll never listen to David Bowie, Elton John, and Lady Gaga again. Her songs come on, and I see her spirit cooking at the parties. So she's deep in the whole Q lore. She's in the Q-universe, so the Q-universe is an alternate universe in and of itself. You got the mainstream box, you got the MSM Plus, which is a subset of mainstream, and within that, you've got the Q-universe, which isn't closer to the truth, but it's deeper into the propaganda. She goes on to say, shopping used to be fun, now it's difficult. I'll walk into a store and everything I see, poison, poison, poison. Hair, clothes, beauty products, toys, you name it. Even Hot Wheels made out of aluminum and lead. It's disgusting. Would you like soda or water? Soda, you might as well take a cup of heavy metals and drink it. But in case we find a health-conscious person who worries about calories, let's fill the waters up with heavy metals too. So they're getting metals and plastic, a double whammy. She can't drink Coca-Cola. She also lost trust in modern medicine. She's terrified to drink the water. She says the state won't let her buy chickens because she doesn't have enough land, which means she has to eat the poisoned eggs from the grocery store. Thankfully, thank God, or thank Q, her Tupperware is there for her because everything else is coated in lead and toxins. She said, I spent the last year upgrading my kitchen to remove as much plastic and toxic materials as possible, which is expensive. Had to get a new air fryer because lo and behold, now it's L-O, not low, L-O-W. Lo and behold, the $70 ones, I'm not trying to correct her. This person cannot be corrected. This is someone who will not be convinced that they could be wrong about anything. All new pots and pans, all new Tupperware and utensils. I can't afford a water filter system. Oh, like the kind that Alex Jones sells. I'd like to get some chickens, but my state made it illegal unless you have at least 1 acre. I won't get into the medical system and the damage they've done to me and my household, or the fact you can't trust school or daycares. This is getting pretty bad. It's dismal. I used to believe I lived in a world where evil was rare, but because of the awakening, all I see is evil. You can't escape. She says to do this alone because no one around you sees it makes it so much harder. All the while, the loves of your life are questioning your parenting and family decisions. Just because you don't want to V your children and put them in schools. Okay, so this is typical. This is almost like Chat GPT style. But I've heard all these sentiments from truthers. So her family finds her paranoid delusions about the awakening and the evil, her religious fervor off-putting. And apparently she's been disowned. My point here is that trutherism is alt-woke, and it's a doomsday cult. Dangerous cults all have this same feature. They teach their followers to fear the world. Standard. You got to quarantine, mentally quarantine from the non-believers. Most religions prohibit certain foods, behaviors, and actions so they can exert arbitrary power. They have these rules to control their followers. And these cultural differences that they put into your life are designed to put friction between you and the people in your life. It's designed to deepen the divide, to alienate friends and families, to make you more susceptible and malleable to the cult leader. So those who don't join the truth or awakening are seen as corrupt, or they sold out to the world. Just like to the woke, if you're not woke, you're supporting a racist, misogynistic, oppressive system, consciously or not. That's where the whole anti-racism thing comes into the picture, where if you're not against it, you're for it, whether or not you know it. And so it's the duty of the woke and the awakened to get to the people who aren't awake and get them to their side. So they're both insane. The sanest place on earth is the off-world stage perspective. You can go off the grid. You can go out LARP-steading out in the mountains, go out into the middle of nowhere and build your bunker. But if your mind is still corralled by the mainstream mediated program, then you've taken the matrix with you. Truly, the only people who have gone off the grid are media skeptics at our level. And we can debate that if you like. If you think we're missing something here, because some people don't agree. I got a comment from Catastrophe 2021 who said, I agreed with you about almost everything except for chemtrails. I see them being sprayed. They turn my sky here in Portland, Maine from blue to white in a couple of hours. How many times have we heard this nonsense? And no one has a time lapse of this phenomenon. And they all say it like a mantra. He says, I witnessed this with my own eyes. Do you see them where you are? So I don't really want to deal with this directly. I just want to refer him or her, this person, to this article I wrote, The Chemtrail Truther Jedi Mind Trick Explained. He's falling for a couple of logical fallacies, namely the faulty causality. He sees the streaks in the sky, then the sky turns white, and he thinks the streaks cause the sky to turn white. That's a faulty causality. What's happening is the sky was already, I'm talking about the atmosphere, the pressure, the temperature, it was already conducive to persistent condensation trails. The planes went through and proved this. The planes don't cause it, they just demonstrate the conditions up above. But faulty causality is a tricky one. Crow 77777 believes that if you see chemtrails, you can boil vinegar in your yard. And apparently it clears the sky and turns the sky blue. Now, the sky would have gone blue whether or not he boiled vinegar. That's, again, faulty causality. It's like taking credit for the sun setting by saying, I'm pointing at the sun. It's going to go down. Yeah, it was going to. So this is just a trick, and his eyewitness testimony can just be rejected. If someone's going to make a bold claim that they saw some secret weather weapon and it changed the weather, and they don't have a picture, you can just disregard it. If they really care, like, look, I'd ask them this too. Why aren't you wearing a mask? You think that they're dumping chemicals in your head and you're not wearing a mask? All right, let's see who's here. Diana South from D-Live. KWAS, Algae Rhythms, Pocahontas, FTW, Messianic Charlatan, Roxy W. Armin Reed, Deprogram Truther, thanks for joining. Ears Up, J-Dig says, been away a minute. I like the screen layout. Thank you. And hopefully it sounds louder. J Geese 5 says, hey guys. Ted Stryker says, I appreciate the MSM Nightmare article. Poor girl's been waiting. Yeah, she's been waiting for 7 years. X322, thanks for joining. LG says, when you say I'm anti-anti, doesn't that make you the pro category by default since double negative equates a positive? No. No, because it's a false dichotomy. So if you're looking at the main position, it's pro. If you're anti, or rather alt media, you're anti. The anti-anti position is also anti-pro, meaning I reject them both. And I'm not taking some middle position, because there's no such thing. Rather, I take the position of I'm a non-participant conscientious objector in their Psy-War scenario. So I'm not being played. I frequently reference war games. The tagline is, strange game, the only winning move is not to play. And it's really like that. And if you're taking sides on any political issue, you're in their political horseshoe. And this horseshoe exists within their fictional universe. So I'm outside of their fictional universe, their worldview construct, their simulation. I'm a skeptic of the simulation. And the simulation is the internalized map of the world that we're collectively agreeing is the world, according to the consensus. And there's some disagreement here and there, but they try to minimize the disagreement just to surface issues. So left and right both believe that man is messing up the weather, but one thinks it's government, one thinks it's the private sector causing it. I'm taking the position that maybe it's not even changing. Deprogram Truther says, boom, the first arrest will shock the world. The first arrest was Trump. So that prophecy from Q's already sort of come true. Sort of. The first arrest will shock the world was on 4/4/2023, and Joker 2 is being filmed outside of that courthouse. I happen to think Joker 2, despite what the critics say, has a great deal of significance to this world stage concept. It might even contain some big reveals. We may see soon. But its reviews have been pretty much unanimously bad, kind of missing the point of the movie, I think. It's not Batman, it's not fully action, it's more psychological, but I think there's this element of the fourth wall that we have seen break between Trump, his court appearances, and the related Batman Joker stuff happening in the world at the same time. I mean, just the other day, I posted a blog about the new Batman cartoon called Caped Crusader that Amazon picked up on August 4th for season 2. And a character who's basically Trump, Rupert Thorne, sustains an ear injury, right where Trump did, at the end of the season. And this had to have been written, animated, before the thing happened with Trump. And this is a warning that that Batman will be back season 2. Which makes me think this is foreshadowing for his second term. All right, we were joined by Lean Dion. Thank you for joining. John Francis, Dwayne Abith says, good evening all. Mizelle has joined us. Queen Diamond, thank you. And R. Cook. Okay, we are full. Now wait till we get about 75 people before we start going through all the notes. And I try to get all the most important information out in front. Algorithm says, regarding chemicals, I'll suspend judgment because I have no idea. We can't know whether they exist or not. Well, here's the thing, and this is the burden of proof that has now been shifted. There's this thing called the Appleman chart, and this debunks it. There's no other way you can take it. This chart came out in 1958, I believe, and the airport used it to predict the types of conditions and the altitudes that would result in persistent trails, so they could avoid those areas and thus not give away the location of their craft. So you have these military craft running secret missions. You don't want them to give away their location with contrails. So they have a chart that predicts it. You can predict contrails. You can't, as a chemtrail theorist, you can't provide any kind of prediction. You can't tell me they're going to chemtrail us on Thursday, but they're going to lay off on Sunday. You can't do that. However, you can look at weather. You can look at the Appleman chart, and you can, from this, extrapolate, well, we're likely to have condensation trails during these times. So it's solely a factor of weather and the environment, the atmosphere, the altitude, the temperature. That's it. I think where a lot of chemtrail believers get it wrong is they think that maybe they're not thinking about how cold it is up there. But no, there's no reason to believe in chemtrails. These are just cirrus clouds, anthropogenic cirrus clouds. And I would also push back on the idea that they're ugly. People say the sky used to be blue and the sun was yellow. No, it wasn't. The sky is still blue. And condensation trails are I think they're sort of attractive. Like in the sense of, it's kind of like unintentionally artful. It's like, look, we fly. That's kind of a big deal. We should be proud of that as a species. And the fact that these jets with this hot air results in condensation and persistent trails shouldn't really concern us very much. The climate change people are saying, however, that condensation trails are causing global warming. So if you believe that they're geoengineering us with airplanes, then you're on Team Greta. You got pulled in. You have to reject the bait. You have to reject the claim and the loaded questions. I'm not on Team Greta, and I'm not on Team Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm embarrassed of them both. Elephant Tusk says, the latest Penguin episode is brutal to watch. Penguin's a great show. It's one of the best things I've seen in a long time. And it's a great example of deep fakery. and the fact that we're all dupable, because I didn't know that was Colin Farrell. I thought they found some sort of overweight guy who looked like the Penguin. I thought that was the actor's face. I had no idea until I watched the first episode and I read some review. So I was completely fooled. Reverse History said, I watched the whole Batman ear-piercing episode last night. Dense campaign and buttons are prominently featured in a couple of scenes. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on it if you want to call in. We're talking about Batman Caped Crusader, and here's the other point of it too. The Boys, Season 4, Episode 8. Stranger Things 4, Episode 8. We're talking about season finales. This was a season finale. It's the season finales where the Trump character gets it. Algorithm says, it's okay if the skies change, everything does. Many variables come into play, sun activity, humidity, pressure, electromagnetics, etc. Yes, but the fact of it is, commercial airlines are not spraying anything. That's one of the main tricks. So I call these Jedi mind tricks. So chemtrail theorists cannot predict. That's a big deal. But it's a loaded question. When they say, what are they spraying? The question itself assumes a spray. It'd be like walking into a house where your mother's cooking and you're like, what is she burning? Like the presumption is that she's burning something, but maybe she's not. So it's the language conveys something. And when you're saying, what are they spraying? You're accusing them and you're loading the question with the premise that there's a spray. Exhaust is not a spray. What's coming out of the airplane is exhaust, nothing else. The interaction between the exhaust and cold, rarefied air at high altitude and the condensate from the exhaust results in the condensation trails. And it's exhaust, it's not a spray. And there's a qualitative difference here. A spray would imply that there's a substance in the airplane that is being added to it. And if that's your claim, well, then you have to go look at an airplane and show us. Show us where the chemtrail button is that they push to spray it. So that's a loaded question. That's a logical fallacy. And then it also shifts the burden of proof. So the person who says, what are they spraying, doesn't have to prove anything. You have to prove them wrong, or they can call you a mindless sheep. No, I don't have to prove you wrong. You have to come to me with an answer, not a question. This is the argument from ignorance fallacy. By asserting a proposition is true because it has not yet been proven false or that it might be true. In other words, they assert that the planes are spraying something, which is an assertion disguised as a question. So that's one of the issues here. What are they spraying? Suggests that it's not known. Well, how do you know it's not known? Have you researched it? So if you haven't researched it and you ask the question, it's sort of a bad faith question, unless you're asking somebody who might have the answer. If you're asking people who you know don't have the answer because you're recruiting them into your belief system, then you're just being disingenuous. I would even add that this theory of chemtrails implicates commercial airlines in war crimes. This is in direct violation of the 1925 Geneva Protocol, which prohibits chemical and biological weapons. So a better question would be an honest question, because the way that it's framed, and a lot of the people who have been pushing chemtrails have been pushing it for 20 years. They've been asking the same question for 20 years. That's not acceptable. A better question would be, what is the trail? Or why is the exhaust so persistent? And then some will say, well, you don't remember, or you wouldn't know because you're not old enough. But when I was a kid, the skies were blue, we didn't have trails, and now we do. And they make these claims that after the fact, like in all the movies, they've added chemtrails, so we think they were always there. No, there's a few reasons why people have these misconceptions, but you just got to do a little digging, and you can find that people have talked about the trails behind planes as far back as 1915. Many older chemtrail truthers do say they didn't exist before the 90s, that the sky used to be blue. This is anecdotal. And I would also argue that this could be like the Mandela effect or the misinformation effect. Actually, the Mandela effect is the misinformation effect. And it has to do with the way that what we recall when prompted with a question may actually affect our recollection. Our memory can be altered over time. And so people are likely just conflating memories mashed up with whatever they're shown in the memes. Like, do you remember when the sky was blue and the sun was yellow? What's your basis for remembering the sky blue and the sun yellow? Well, it's probably crayons. When you were a kid, you were drawing the sun, the smiley face on it. And so you always had this simplified view of what the sun looks like or what the sky looks like. Well, it's not always blue. It just depends. But the idea that the sky is now white or the sun is dimmer or now the sun turned white, this is a common claim. Military jets, they'll say, it's secret military jets you can't track. That's another claim, which we can deal with that one later. But I would argue that if you're going to say that you've got evidence of a vast conspiracy, it's on you to bring some pictures. And then finally, some people will say, well, you must think that the bad guys love us if you don't think they're spraying us. That's called appeal to motive fallacy. You assert that the bad guys, the they, are so bad that obviously they would spray us with bugs. Yeah, that's not an argument in favor of this theory. So these are just a few areas where chemtrail theorists are just wrong about it. They're basically being set up. It's a fake issue. And most of the people who promote it play little mind games where they'll say, well, I'm not talking about the trails behind airplanes. I'm talking about the invisible stratospheric injections that's going to blot out the sun. And they just throw in stuff about patents. And just because something has a patent doesn't mean it exists. We'll move on from chemtrails. Just breathe deep. Don't stress it. You don't need a mask. You can breathe the air. Don't fear the clouds. Ted Stryker says Jedi mind tricks are for the weak-minded. Yeah, it's definitely targeting people. See, the appeal to ignorance is actually targeting the ignorant. These chemtrail theorists are not going to pilots. They're not going to meteorologists. They just assume those guys are in on the conspiracy. They go to the people who don't know. And a lot of them don't know the real explanation. They just prefer not to know. They perhaps keep themselves ignorant of it. I've been accused of being a shill for I'm working for Delta Airlines. They drop off a suitcase of money once a week as long as I push back on chemtrails. Defrag says thousands of news reports and unsealed documents means it's fake. Gotcha. How about this? Unsealed documents means it's real. Oh yeah, these documents were unsealed, so it's all real. I would say which document? Because you're making an appeal to authority. It's like, oh, I don't trust the government except when the documents are leaked. So what exactly are you talking about? And also, one of the other sneaky tricks that chemtrail believers will do is they'll say, well, don't you believe in cloud seeding? Well, cloud seeding has nothing to do with this. But yeah, it is all fake. Just so you know, it is fake. And if you don't think it's fake, if you really believe that the airplanes are spraying you in the face with poison, where's your mask? I don't believe you actually believe it. I think you're LARPing. You're not really a skyphobe. Where's your mask? Elephant Tusk says, did you hear Oprah owns a video of Diddy and Beaver? No, and I don't even believe it. I'm leaning towards it's all fake, and that's just really bad fan fiction. It reminds me of satanic ritual abuse, satanic panic, Pizzagate, QAnon. This new stuff with Diddy is just Epstein recycled. I'm not convinced. I'm sure that this is all scripted and fake. I've seen a number of people also posting these claims about Tim Walz, and these have gone mega viral, and then it turns out it's all fake. So truthers are liars, first and foremost. They lie to themselves. They're in a false paradigm, so you can't trust them, even if their hearts are pure. Elephant Tusk says, Liam Payne threw himself off a balcony. I saw that third story. There was something to it, and I have some information on that. Algae Rhythm says, it could be the sun appears wider due to its own activity and humidity content in the atmosphere. Too many variables. Well, what color is the sun? The sun isn't yellow. The sun is, when you get into that, I guess it's green. I think the science on it, they say the sun is green, but no, the sun isn't white. It's not yellow. It's not orange. It's not red. It's just light, but depends on what time of day and what the atmosphere is like. Sometimes it's orange. Sometimes it does look yellow. Okay, Water Walking says, Diddy did a number on Oprah. Heard it was Diddy, Rick Ross, and Oprah in the same room. Door locked, security outside patrolling. Interesting. Again, this is all just like SRA. There are all kinds of stories you can find if you listen. There's a book by Kathy O'Brien called Transformation of America, and it's all about how when she was little, she alleges that she was prostituted to every major celebrity, politician, and these stories are rich in detail, but I don't think they're real. Like the one about Sylvester Stallone and his rapey dolphins and all kinds of crazy stuff. Dick Cheney and you don't want to know. And then the Mexican president who turns into an iguana and then he rapes the kids. It's just disgusting stuff. But this is not new. So I need evidence. Seems like it's a lot of fan fiction. James says, you can't prove chemtrails are not being sprayed and you can't prove they are. Let's leave the argument at that. No, actually, let me bring out Hitchens' razor, which says that which is asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. You can't prove that contrails or chemtrails aren't the result of unicorns marking their territory in the stratosphere. You can't prove a negative. So it's like, no, you can't really bring up the notion that I'm in any way owning any part of your burden of proof. You supplied no evidence. You can't debunk the Appleman chart. The Appleman chart actually sinks it. I mean, really, if you want to be honest about it, the Appleman chart means that contrails are predictable. It's not a chart that predicts when the secret military jets are going to spray the people. No, the chart predicts the likelihood of persistent trails based on the weather. So no, James M., you have to consult the Appleman chart. Chemtrails have been debunked. You just have to let it go. And if you're not going to let it go, at least wear a mask. But write on the mask, for chemtrails, not COVID, so they don't think you're a brainwashed lefty. Elephant Tusk says, Oprah is part of the Mothers of Darkness group. No, I've heard of the Mothers of Darkness. David Icke pushed that. Everything that Q says today was said by David Icke in his book Children of the Matrix. And I read that stuff when it first came out, and it was it's rumor-based psyops, like witch hunts, for example. And that's what we're seeing. These are like Pizzagate, for example. Pizzagate's a psyop. Look at who started it, Jack Posobiec. He even said we need a satanic panic. And one of the things we often discuss here is the political horseshoe. And the left is motivated by, of course, this scientific paradigm. They are pro-vax because they believe, of course, in this modern paradigm. And I think it's a replacement for the traditional concept of sin, which only afflicts the right and only they care about it. And I would argue that the left has their scientific paradigm and its replacement sin, and the right is still stuck on moral panics, or moral panic demics is what I call them. And the satanic panic is one such example. And it only motivates the right. You won't see lefties running with Pizzagate stuff. Why is that? If there's a perfect left-right divide on how people interpret something, if it's that subjective and it's split down the middle, it's fake. Maggart4822 says it's chemtrailing my lungs. Oh yeah, you'll get chemtrail lung. Believe me. It's called the placebo effect. If you really believe it's there, you might get some psychosomatics. You could die, but it's not really the cirrus cloud's doing it. It's just psychosomatic. Fearing for nothing anyway. Evening, says P. Trippa. James M. says you can't prove they're ice crystals every time. You don't have an argument. You really don't. You can't even coherently say Copaesthetic says it's getting colder, chemtrail boofing season. Yeah, every winter the chemtrail crowd is bewildered. They're like, oh, they're spraying us. They're spraying us heavier now. They weren't spraying us so much in the summer. What changed between summer and winter? Let me think. What could have changed that would cause the same traffic to have completely different effects? But no, there is no argument in favor of the existence of chemtrails. You can't even say whether it's commercial airlines or secret invisible jets or stratospheric aerosol injections or HARP. You can't even define it. much less predict it. Now, if you could come up with a chart that could predict chemtrails, then I would believe you, but you can't. The Appleman chart, which is like 70 years old, can predict them. And it predicts them on the basis that this is a phenomenon that is caused by hot exhaust at high altitudes in the cold air. So what's more likely? That they've been accurately predicting condensation trails on that basis for 70 years, or that it's chemtrails and it's not predictable. So the fact that chemtrails cannot be predicted means you're wrong. The real question here is, can you admit that you're wrong? That's what I find more interesting. Not about whether chemtrails are real or not. We've already figured that out. My interest now is in finding out, is there a single truther out there who can publicly say, I was wrong about chemtrails. I was skyphobic and paranoid for no reason. Defrag says, this think tank went from question everything to believe nothing. Exactly. Just asking questions is crap. I'm just asking questions. That's not good enough. How about get some answers? It's the information age. If you're just asking questions, you're likely promoting loaded questions, and it's highly dishonest. And what's more, I don't think we should be believers. I think we should know. Why do you believe in chemtrails and yet you don't know? Think about that. You don't know that chemtrails exist. You think you kind of believe it though. You want to believe it, but you don't have any reasons. You don't have any facts. So you're a chemtrail believer, not a knower. And the believer-knower distinction is fundamental. Truthers are believers. It's an alternative belief system to the mainstream believers. This third branch of media, parallel media, the skeptics, no, we are defined as having a culture of disbelief, non-belief, informed non-belief. So no, we are not believers here. You're correct about that. We were never about merely asking questions. We were always about finding answers. So yes. Nicotrama says, I was wrong about chemtrails, never considered them to be fake until Tim pressed the issue. I never even thought about them. I kind of I think tacitly bought into the idea that the bad guys are so bad, they probably do it. And that's just a testament to how powerful the cultural pessimism is in Trutherville, where you just walk around thinking, yeah, everything's normal. We're being sprayed by poison from above and there's nothing I can do about it because I'm powerless. Which is probably part of its purpose. It's an active measure to demoralize you. Think about what a coward you are if you've believed in chemtrails for the last 15 years and you have not done one thing to stop it. If you have not called the police or threatened a lawsuit, then you're simply a coward. I mean, do it for your children. I've said this before. If 20 chemtrail believers can get together and agree that they want to sue the airlines, I will get behind a class action lawsuit and we will sue the airlines for destroying Gaia, for poisoning the atmosphere, for poisoning us. We would sue them. And then in the discovery process, we would find the truth. We would shine a light on this issue. I cannot find 20 who will do it. All right, Clump says, artificial cirrus haze effect. Yeah, they're just bewildered by high altitude clouds. Plain Decoded says, Dear General Flynn, please ask Michael the Archangel to pray for me to the Lord JFK to forgive me for believing in chemtrails. I think I heard that at a Trump rally. No, chemtrails don't exist, and that's good news. If you're mad about it, I'll ask you why. And one other point here. If you believe in chemtrails, you don't believe in climate change. I shouldn't be able to tell you what you believe based on one of your opinions, but I can if you're in the program. It's a schism that they intentionally designed, and it cannot be reconciled. These are diametrically opposed perspectives. The mainstream and the alt. And the alt position is predictable, it's knee-jerk, it's non-skeptical, and it's passive. It results from a passive consumption of media as a believer, not as a critical thinker or skeptic. And again, you don't have evidence and you can't predict chemtrails. That solves it. You can go ahead and rest on this. Water Walking says, I think if you did a chemtrail debate, it would get big views. Well, the thing is, chemtrail people are very emotional about it. And they are likely uninformed about the logical fallacies that they use. And they predictably use. I had one of them screeching at me, don't you believe in cloud seeding? And I'm like, we weren't talking about cloud seeding. Another one said, oh, we're not talking about the lines in the sky. We're talking about stratospheric aerosol injections. And I'm like, no, 99.9% of your memes are lines in the sky. The problem with it is people have a hard time admitting that they're wrong. And I don't have that problem. I used to believe NASA's missions were all real. I used to believe all the school shootings are real, terror attacks are real. I used to believe the news implicitly. I thought it was worse. So I can admit. Now, Defrag says, out of all the theories about chemtrails, I never heard one where it was commercial airlines causing them, always some secret agency. See, that's one of the bullshit tactics that they use. You're absolutely being foolish here. You're saying you've never heard somebody saying it was commercial airlines, yet every single chemtrail meme shows commercial airlines. Every single one, without fail. They point to the grids. They're like, oh, look, they crisscross. They're dumping poisons on us. No, those are flight paths. I'm not even exaggerating. Every single chemtrail documentary, every chemtrail meme specifically points its fingers at commercial airlines. So how do you come in here saying that you've never heard anybody point the fingers at commercial airlines? That's your sole evidence for chemtrails. It's what the commercial airlines are doing. That's the kind of dishonesty that I expect from the chemtrail believers. And if you have to use dishonesty to advance your opinion, then I would ask, are you being paid to do this? If not, you should go apply for a job with the government, with the PSYOP entertainment complex. Scroll Craigslist for crisis actor ads. Go work at FEMA, DHS. I mean, if you're willing to make up stuff on the spot and bend the truth to maintain something like this, well, you might be a good fit. I really don't understand that perspective that you can just categorically say, no, nobody's ever blamed commercial airlines. That is the sole culprit and has been. But you're not the first one to do this. I've had a lot of people say this. They'll say, nobody's talking about this. It's secret jets. Well, show me your secret jet. And these secret jets all follow conventional airplanes and their flight paths? No. I think we can stick to the Appleman chart. Chemtrail theory was pre-debunked 70 years ago. You can let it go. Although you're free to express your opinions here, but I just find it to be... Here's one more point. There are chemtrails over Trutherville. That's this article here. Toxic skies over Trutherville. If you believe in invisible cloud seeding, poison spraying airplanes that only you can see, you might be a victim of the chemtrail psyop. Chemtrail belief is an alternative to climate change. So I've been saying for a long time that climate change is a religious belief, not a scientific fact. I'm at the point now where chemtrail believers are in the same category. It's the alternative view that keeps the narrative alive that man is exacerbating climate chaos by his actions. The difference is left-wingers believe in climate change and they blame the private sector and the right. Right-wingers believe that it's caused by the secret government because they're anti-government and that it's geoengineering. And that's why you said secret project. So again, of all the hills to die on, like what is the win here? What do you gain from defending something so ridiculous as chemtrail theory? This is like low-level truther bait. And one of the things I think it does is it acts as a kind of a hook. Like you're fishing. Like let's say you're running a limited hangout operation and you want to get more people into alt media. Yeah, you want to throw out something that appeals to the ignorant and gets them on pure suspicion and the appeal to motive, the belief in a they, to join you. So it's kind of a big tent conspiracy theory. And if you accept the premise that they are spraying us, everything else is easy to accept. And then two, looking at the lines in the sky gives you evidence. It's the only evidence that you're being oppressed by the Illuminati. You have no other evidence that you can provide that you're being oppressed except for these clouds. So it's even more visible than climate change. No, Defrag, you're wrong about that. Again, I'm going to just say this again, Appleman chart. If you can't debunk the Appleman chart, then you have no argument for chemtrails. Defrag says, for the record, I don't believe in chemtrails. I find it weird. I followed this channel for almost 10 years, and I've heard the takes change. I've never believed in chemtrails, and 10 years ago, I was working for Walmart, and I was writing ebooks, ghostwriting, and doing art on eBay. This channel didn't exist 10 years ago. It's interesting how people have this distorted sense of time. It was kind of funny. There was this kind of a fight to see who's the first one to figure out the Earth was flat, and it was like 2015, Eric Dubay. And then someone else would come along, well, I was talking about it in 2014. And then everyone starts nudging their dates back further and further. But anyway, no, it was not 10 years ago. And I've never believed in chemtrails. I've never said that I've never advocated for chemtrail belief. I always thought it was just sort of one of these things that I guess I sort of just never thought it was all that important. I never saw evidence for it. It never made sense. I always thought, if it were true, wouldn't they poison themselves as well? Yeah, 2017. So no, it would be 7 years ago, tops. But no, I've never been a chemtrail believer. If you're a chemtrail believer and not a chemtrail knower, then the burden of proof is on you. Why haven't you gone further? Why haven't you investigated it? Tim Pool said, when I worked at American Airlines, we had huge hoses for pumping chemicals into jets. I personally pumped hydroxyl acid into jets on several occasions, and we all knew exactly what we were doing. The trails that cat turd sees are hydroxyl acid vapors coming out of the back of jets. So here, there's a skyphobic right-winger, goes by the name Cat Turd, and he put out this tweet describing chemtrails and how scary it is. And it's a picture of lines in the sky created by commercial airlines. So here's Tim Pool, who says that he personally pumped hydroxyl acid into the jets. Well, it turns out, here's what he said, because he was on vacation. So Cat Turd said, last week I got out in daylight to walk my dogs around the ranch, and I was thinking to myself, what a clear blue sky. Then I saw airplanes everywhere crisscrossing. Then I watched chemtrails in real time. The sky got overcast and it turned fake, milky, and murky. This is not a conspiracy theory. This actually happened. This is real. So he posted this to his 2.4 million followers. And here's the scary clouds. These very scary cirrus clouds. And again, these aren't secret jets. These are commercial airlines. So an otherwise blessed day was ruined by skyphobia. And he has 2.4 million followers who all just believe this stuff. And Tim Pool was trolling. He said, hydroxyl acid is dangerous. It's found in cancer. It can eat through metal. And if you inhale it, you can die. Well, the joke here is that hydroxyl acid, it's just talking about water. So my question, though, is why is Tim Pool questioning one of the biggest psyops that's directed at corralling truthers into Trutherville? I'd made it a point to be debunking these things, these trails, and then all of a sudden he takes a sharp turn on this one. And this is something that they're all like unanimously in agreement. We all believe in chemtrails. It's a right-wing belief. Okay, let's see here. Looks like we have someone arrived with a box of wrenches. Ted Stryker, appreciate it. So King Diamond, Third Eye, Max Carter, Jimbo Akimbo, Crystal Driscoll, Linda Curtis, Grills, Trillions, Nothing Major, NBD, Jungle Jim have all received the coveted blue wrench. Abuse the power responsibly. James says, my observation is jets fly across the sky with spreading exhaust, and an hour later the whole sky is clouded and the sun is blocked. Winter, spring, or summer never fails. I don't believe you. And the reason I don't believe you is you don't have any evidence. This is the information age. We all have expensive phones in our pockets with high definition cameras. And if you're seeing evidence of weather manipulation at that scale and you're not taking pictures, then what's wrong with you? Like, no, take a picture. Take a picture, do a time lapse of jets causing the sky to turn white. I would love to see it. I've been putting this out there for some time. It's like, yeah, take a video of the space station, please, and then send it to me. I'll take a look. Record your chemtrail theory and I'll take a look. But nobody can do it. And what's it going to take for one of these chemtrail believers to provide evidence? It's all hearsay. And you all sound like you're reading from the same script. So this cat turd guy is saying, I saw the jets crisscross the sky and it all turned white. They all say it like they memorized a script. But I don't believe that these are real observations. I've heard this from too many people, no evidence. And some of them will even say, and I brought out my phone and I have a tracker on an app and I track all the flights and the lines in the sky were not being tracked. So you're tracking or you're observing untracked airplanes dumping poisons on America, and you're not calling the army. You're not calling the National Guard. You're not calling the police. I mean, come on. Yeah, show me video of your chemtrails, and then we'll discuss it. Because what I would want to do is I'll look at the time, the date, and then I'll consult the Appleman chart. I'll consult your local newspapers and see, okay, what was the weather like on this date? And then we can ask, what's more likely? That these are chemicals that are really harmful, but not so harmful that you wear a mask, or that it's just jet exhaust. And then I'd also like to ask you if you've ever flown on an airplane, because where do they put the chemtrail sauce? I have to wonder if any chemtrail believer is considered, if maybe chemtrails burn hot enough to melt steel. Jet fuel may not, but maybe chemtrails do. The chemtrail juice, highly flammable. Wouldn't want to crash into a building because it might just melt it. Condensation trails exist. Condensation trails exist. It's a complete sentence. It's a fact. You can't debunk it. Condensation trails exist. They're repeatable. The conditions which are conducive to condensation trails that are persistent are well understood. They exist and they're predictable. You have no evidence for chemtrails. At this point, you have faith in a lie that has been debunked. And what is the benefit of this lie? I think it gives you maybe a scapegoat and a sense of victimhood. Like, look, I'm being oppressed. The bad guys are poisoning us and I can prove it. It validates all your fears. It validates your worldview. Copaesthetic says, take a selfie in, take a selfie with your mask with chemtrails behind you. Otherwise, we're not going to believe you that you're actually scared. And if you really believed in it, you would do this. Because then people would say to you, why are you wearing a mask? And you would say, well, why aren't you wearing a mask? Why aren't your kids wearing masks? You're walking your dog isn't masked. You realize that they're dumping poison on us from that plane. Armin Ree says, is this a chat raid? I think it's just an old wound. I think a lot of chemtrail believers are mad because they have to admit at some point that they're wrong. They're going to have to. Or they're going to have to double down on belief. And one thing that James M. and Defrag cannot say is they cannot say, I know chemtrails exist. It's just speculation. They're confused. They don't have any certainty. But I have certainty that condensation trails exist. And the certainty and predictability of those eliminates their hypothetical situation, which makes no sense anyway. Besides, it's as bad as Gretaism. You're on team Marjorie Taylor Greene. Typical, it's just Trutherville stuff. And, I hate to kick a dead horse, but you're crying wolf in a crowded theater. And look where it's leading you. Now you're lumped in with these people. FEMA is not blockading people. The agency wrote on its website, FEMA does not control traffic or conduct traffic stops. This is a dangerous, harmful rumor. So now you're seeing the agenda here unfolding. Why would you have alt media believing something like this? To make them susceptible, to lead them to believe in something even more egregious. Now chemtrail believers can be lumped in as some kind of threat to the state because now a bunch of chemtrail believers are threatening meteorologists because they believe that the hurricane was caused by chemtrails. I think this is all a setup. Immortal L says, still waiting for proof of chemtrails. I'm still waiting. Look, there's some people who can never, you think about it, you spent 10, 15, 20 years making money off of it. There's no way you can back up. And that's what I find to be the more interesting question. For example, Crow 7777777 has said for years that he disperses chemtrails by boiling vinegar. Now, do you think that he could ever admit to his audiences that, hey, I fell for faulty causality? I kind of tricked myself. No, he will never be able to walk back that. He can never walk back on selling fear for years and years. He's invested in the lie. And I think that's interesting because I'm not invested in lies. If I'm wrong, prove me wrong, please. I will backtrack. But when it comes to establishment-friendly alt-media conspiracies, they defend these things. They don't care if it's real or not. It's not even evidence-based. It's alternative belief. It's faith-based. Again, we're not believers here. Defrag was right. We're not believers. Okay, let's move on. It's an old conspiracy theory, and it's been long since debunked, and it's become a joke. It was a joke back when Ron Paul's followers used to spray vinegar at the clouds. That was a thing. They used to spray vinegar at the skies, believing that it somehow dispersed chemtrails. So it's not new. Okay, let's go through my notes here finally. Thanks again for joining. It's 10/16/2024. This is the Ips Evening Deprogram. Chemtrails don't exist, James M. Now you're just playing with words. Let's go ahead and address this because I want to talk about or point out how chemtrail believers are some of the most dishonest truthers. So here he's engaging in sophistry and wordplay. He says, burnt gas results in black chemtrails from inefficient burning gas combustion engines. It's a chemical burn, dude. Come on, it's a chemtrail. So you can't redefine it. And again, you can't stand by the question, what are they spraying? If you're asking that question, then you're being dishonest. You're loading the question. You should be asking, what is that trail behind the airplane? So again, it's a dishonest position. If you want to continue to lie about it, why don't you call in and lie on record so we can hear it? And because I'm not sure if you're not just trolling. So if you're a chemtrail believer at this stage, in just sheer denialism, call in 505-510-4226. And if I don't hear the mask, if your voice isn't muffled, I'm going to consider that you're just trolling. Jacques says, contrails at times extend in dim sunlight. This is irrefutable. Yes, so do umbrellas. You could post videos if you want. I mean, honestly, until you can address the Appleman chart, nobody cares what you have to say about chemtrails because they don't exist. They're not predictable. What is predictable is the intransigence of the truthers who cannot admit that they're wrong. There's no shame in it. This is not a hill to die on. There are far more important issues. So let's get into my notes. I'm reading a book by Isaac Weishaupt, a podcaster I follow, and I found one of his books at a Goodwill. The Dark Path, Conspiracy Theories of Illuminati, Occult Symbolism, and Pop Culture, New Age Alien Agenda, and Satanic Transhumanism. And here's what he found, or what he posted, and I think this is something I want to look up. He says, Crowley claims to have passed his theory for its use to the BBC and British Naval Intelligence. He was contacted by Ian Fleming, the author of James Bond series MI5 Intel Agent, with a plan to capture Rudolf Hess in Britain by using astrology. The meeting was immortalized when Fleming used Crowley's likeness to create the villain of the first Bond movie, Casino Royale, shortly after Crowley's death. So what stands out here to me is, I didn't know, I haven't seen this, but I want to look it up. Casino Royale has a character, Les Chiffres, who is based on Crowley. Ian Fleming, James Bond, that's interesting in and of itself because 007, the original 007 was John Dee, a predecessor to Crowley, and Crowley's ritual magic is derived from a lot of John Dee's work. But I have not seen this movie, so I'm going to look that up and check and see if the likeness is accurate and obvious. This event Everything is fake until proven real. I thought this was real. It looks real, but I also thought that the penguin was like the guy's real face, but it's Colin Farrell in a mask. There's a video circulating of Sydney Wilson. Anybody care to guess her age? Sydney Wilson was shot and killed, and the video was released. BLM activists are saying she was shot and killed over her skin color. But if you watch the footage, and the numbers are interesting, the 6'6" Sydney comes out of her apartment slashing the cop. It says here, according to the police department, he did the things that we train him to do. And they released the graphic footage, and I watched it. First-person shooter. It looked like Doom. But yes, if you ears up, you're correct. She was 33. 33-year-old. What's more, her apartment number was 322. This has serious ritual significance, according to Mr. Accountability. So yeah, I would agree with this. 322, 33, 66, a lot of important numbers. I'm not going to play the footage, even though it's likely fake. Okay, let's see what we have here. This is why I say fake until proven real. And this needs to be the operating system, or disbelieve by default, as Minds.com put it. Disbelieve by default. We're looking at, I have a series here, a thread of deepfakes that are so realistic as to be undetectable. And this is new when it comes to digital deepfakes, but we have to keep in mind that they were creating deepfakes with hyper-realistic face masks and basic spycraft in disguise long before. But I just have a number of videos here. For example, this one. This is not the person. This is a completely generated video clip based on her likeness and voice.
This is a completely fake video of me. The AI used 30 seconds of me talking to a webcam, 30 seconds of my voice, and now I have an avatar that I can make say anything. Don't trust your own eyes.
Don't trust your own eyes. And I coined the term CSAY for the visual equivalent of hearsay, and shortly after, we added that to the autohoaxology lexicon. The Department of Homeland Security stole it from us, and every September they have CSAY Day, where if you see something suspicious, call the DHS. But this is accurate here. People can't tell between real and fake. I call it visual illiteracy. It's the new illiteracy, and it encompasses 99.9% of the population. Okay, let's see here. James M says, I'm not trolling. Where do I send videos? You can go to my Gilded, go to ips.monster. I'll take you there. Go to ips.monster. Go into the Discord or Gilded. You see the links here. I'll just put the links in the chat. And then post your evidence of, quote, chemtrails. So we can laugh at it later. Just kidding. So we can consider the evidence impartially. Because maybe I'm wrong. And maybe your video will convince me that chemtrails are real. And then I'll start wearing a mask. I'm just wondering why you're so married to the issue that you only half-ass care about. Because if you really cared about it, you would be warning your family and friends. You'd be protesting at airports. Take an example from the environmentalists, like Extinction. What was it called? It was some kind of organization. I think it was called... It was a bunch of climate people, and they believed that we're about to go extinct. And so they would go play dead in public. And they'd block roads. They'd throw tomato sauce on paintings, glue themselves to airplanes. The environmentalists have really led the way when it comes to defending the planet from man screwing up the weather. And no chemtrail people have that kind of initiative. And I think that's kind of sad. What do we have here? Great points here. Okay, this was posted by Evening Star. He said, if a high-powered rifle bullet grazed his ear, it would have blown it half off.
So here it says, no blood on his hand. So here you see the hand of Donald Trump, just the very moment after he had been allegedly shot. So the hand is just coming from his ear. There's no blood. So on July 13th, 2024, 35 miles north of Pittsburgh, America, there was no blood on Donald Trump's hand. The blood suddenly appeared after having been hidden away from sight for a while.
Yeah, they could have put it on when he's on the ground. I still think that the MAGA hats with the 45-47 have a squib, and you just squeeze it on the hyphen and the blood comes out. But in this video, it's 36 minutes long. The video is called MAGA, Make Aristocracy Golf Again. And he makes the case that Trump wasn't shot.
Under the table, like a poor magician's show.
And that's a great point, too. This was a magic trick. It was not a false flag. There was no second shooter. If there was somebody on the water tower, it was a person dressed up like a second shooter to feed the narratives so that the truthers can run in circles around the water tower for the next 20 years. Clueless. This is a magic trick. This is part of a magic show. And it's not Trump tricking the world to beat the Democrats, because at the top of the pyramid where they sign off on psyops, it's all one. The two-party illusion is just how they maintain the psy war. Let's continue.
So here, one movement even further. The guy's still having his mouth open all the time here. So his hand moving from his head to here. And here it says, you see, there's still no blood. There is no blood on his hand. You can all see it. Then, taking an epic Hollywood pose.
Now, this pose, when this came out, I compared it to the cover of Braveheart. So if you look at the Braveheart movie poster and Trump, it's the same pose. A couple of other things that are worth noting. So here's Trump with the sword. Even the sword aligns with the flag staff, the flagpole. So here you've got Trump, fist raised, and instead of the sword, you got the flagpole. And then note the position of the flag, where the blue is on the top left. So now if you look at Trump's Truth Social avatar, the flag is in that same exact position. So now he's got the Braveheart face paint, blue on the left, over his right eye. See the Braveheart face paint, poses like Braveheart. And then if you count the stars, there's 9 stars, and the blue and this line makes a 9, and then you have the 11 out of the other 2 red stripes. This gives you a 9/11, kind of like his hat with the 459 and 4711. So there's a 9/11 on the hat. And then recently, I think it was the New York Post, they had an article with Trump on the cover, and it said Braveheart of our time or something. They called him Braveheart recently, some headline. And I was just pointing out that, yeah, this is, here it is. It's also notable that it's Mel Gibson, because Mel Gibson did Passion of the Christ, starring Jim Caviezel. I spell Caviezel with a Q, who played Jesus in Passion of the Christ when he was 33, and was in Sound of Freedom, a major Q movie that they had a private screening of for Trump at Bedminster, where he sat next to Jim Caviezel. And Jim Caviezel said that he was still Jesus and that Trump is Moses, or King David. By the way, Jim Caviezel died on the 5th take of the Sermon on the Mount scene during the filming of Passion of the Christ. He was struck by lightning, but they brought him back to life. If you believe that, you'll believe anything they tell you, because it's just his there's no video. I'm sorry, but like, you're filming a movie, a guy gets struck by lightning, and there's no video. 20,000 witnessed Donald Trump's triumphant return to Butler, and it says Braveheart. So here we are, specifically in reference to Butler. He's called Braveheart. He's got his Braveheart avatar matching the movie, and then he poses just like Braveheart. So let's play a few more seconds of this video, and then I'm going to post a link to it in the notes.
With the US flag, of course, and obviously beforehand knowing that there never have been multiple shooters, and so did the agents. And here it says the theatrical inconsistency of an all-revealing unprofessionalism. Look at his hand. First of all, there's only 3 fingers here instead of 4, and there's still no blood on his hand. Now,
Okay, now there's a lot more we can go into. This is 36 minutes. This is probably a great watch. I'm looking forward to seeing the entire thing. But I wanted to get to the part where he talks about the ear thing. And by the way, they didn't even bother to put a scar on there, which is ridiculous. Okay, here we go. This is where it talks about what a 223 caliber would do. This is the part I wanted to get to.
the diameter of the bullet, like the caliber 223 in this case, and this is the temporary cavity, because of the enormous high speed, it blows up here, and there's a pressure wave. So this is why, if you see the injuries of President Kennedy, JFK, the back of his head is gone. You got the bullet in front, and there are pictures of it.
This looks really good from a technical perspective, but we have other angles to address this and definitively say it was a magic trick. I think it's also fascinating that this part here, the photographer who photographed the bullet whizzing by his ear, is the same guy that photographed George Bush on 9/11 when they were whispering into his ear that 9/11 just happened. And he's also the guy that took the picture of Elon Musk jumping behind Trump the other day.
Lower than where his ear is. So here you see the bullet, the alleged bullet flying. But you see, this picture has been shot from below. If this person, the journalist.
Let's go through the comments. I want to go through the comments. Lean Dion says, Trump brought up and talked about Braveheart on the recent Flagrant podcast with comedian Andrew Schultz, and he's doing Rogan next. James M. says, IPS is claiming there's no chemtrails. He can't prove there's not. Yeah, you can't prove to me that there's no chupacabra. Debunk chupacabras, please. Debunk unicorns. I do think that there's some stratospheric aerosol injections, but I think it's coming from unicorns. And Bigfoot riding on unicorns has something to do with it. Prove that's not true, and then we can talk. If that's what we're going to do. Let's make outlandish claims and shift the burden of proof, because that's what we do here, right? Look, if you can prove the existence of chemtrails that you have so much faith in, you will be seen as a hero. We will build a statue of you. This guy saved us from the sky poison. Nobody else could do it, but this guy did it. He's got video evidence. If somebody could prove it, they would be a hero. It would be like, I don't know. I mean, you'd get some kind of a prize. I guarantee it. Because think about how many, there's 330 million people in America, and we're all being victimized and poisoned by the chemtrails, and nobody's doing anything about it. And if you can be the one to prove it once and for all, we can stop it. Okay, moving on. Want to read some comments. The Carinator says, even before all the breakdowns came out, when I heard about Trump's assassination attempt, I knew it was a psyop. All the world's a stage. Smart. Someone said touch grass. J. Casey, CIA Director William J. Casey said in 1981, we will know our disinformation is complete when everything the American public believes is false. Everything. So the alt media is controlled by the same people. It's the same CIA. Sorry, it's like there's no difference. Alt, mainstream. So we have a chemtrail Greta in here. He says, your claim of no chemtrails is ridiculous. Chupacabras don't exist. The burden of proof is on the person making the extraordinary claim. And chemtrails is an extraordinary claim. I mean, I don't know how else we can help you, James M. We accept your faith that you are a believer, that you're being poisoned by the sky. But you don't think the poison's so bad that you should wear a mask. Nor do you think it's such a matter of concern that you should call the cops. You're like slightly not even caring about it very much. If your neighbor decided to throw his dog waste in your yard, you would call the cops. You would knock on his door. But for 20 years or 30 years, you've been aware that airplanes are spraying poison in your face, and you haven't lifted a finger. So I'm just kind of curious, what's in the chemtrails? Is it some kind of apathy drug? Yeah, you inhale enough chemtrails, and you're unable to take any meaningful action. Okay, let's see here. Not a scratch on his ear. Spartak says Maga in Latin means witch or sorcerer. Yeah, it does. And I would even say that Make America Great Again is a reference to make it. It also refers to, I think, Babylon the Fallen. The scarlet. I think it describes Revelation 17. And across her brow, it's written, make Babylon the Fallen. And I think that saying, make America great again, implies America has fallen. Trump is the whore of Babylon and Antichrist, all rolled into one, but the noners think he's Christ. But if you go off of predictive programming, he's more anti than not. Lane Dion said he also laughed about the assassination attempt, saying it's kind of funny, then he had to quickly pull back because of Corey and the two injured on the same podcast. Yeah, I love how he said that Corey Comprator, the fireman who was killed, had the best seat in the house. He's like, yeah, I think God protected me. It's like, okay, well, so God protected you, but not that guy? James M. says, I'm not mentioning chemtrails anymore. I'm not dying on the hill because I don't know whether they exist or not. Yeah, you're admitting that you're confused, and that's fine. What we're doing here with this parallel media, this breakaway from alt media, means we're getting away from the confusion of belief systems and competing belief systems. And this places us in a position of informed disbelief. And it removes a lot of phobias. So whereas you don't know if the chemtrails are real or not. So you don't really know, so you're confused about it. So you walk outside, you look at the sky and you're thinking, is that poison or isn't it? We'll never know. So to you it's a mystery, but you think you might be getting poisoned. So you have some uncertainty and doubt. I'll say minor skyphobia. I walk outside and I enjoy my day. I don't have any sort of sense of threat from above. Nor am I wondering about some secret group using airplanes to poison me. So we live in two different worlds. We have two different worldviews. And that's what we're ultimately describing here, how the mainstream worldview is a doomsday cult. The alt media is a subset of that, and it's even more extreme and nightmarish. So in your world, you're being poisoned by bad guys, and nobody believes you. And that must be terrifying for you. I am not even slightly concerned about it. So you're a little more scared than me. That's the main difference. And so I'm just saying here that one of the primary tenets of autohoaxology is that when you're a skeptic and you reserve judgment until you get more information. See, I'm reserving judgment. I don't have enough information to know with a lot of stuff, fake or real, until I assess it. And I have assessed chemtrails. And I have arrived at the conclusion that there's evidence to support contrails. I don't sit in a state of confusion. And what we're trying to get away from here is the confusion. So you're confused and scared and you're admitting it. And that's fine. We're not. I guess I have to go back and read this quote from
Do we know each other?
Frank Herbert, Dune. And this will explain everything, because there's a reason why I'm harping on this. There's a very good reason. Here's what the distinction is. So Frank Herbert said, quote, belief happens because of manipulation, knowledge and a belief. This is it. This is actually a different one, but I like this one. This is the specific one. Now, this is referring to you, mainstream mediated minds and alt media minds. So if you're still a believer in, let's just say, Orthodox trutherism, quote, they are not mad. They are trained to believe, not to know. Belief can be manipulated. Knowledge is dangerous. So you've been trained we've been trained, and that's what, when I say we're all programmed, that's what I mean. We're programmed to be believers. They don't want knowers and seekers and fact finders and reality testers. They want believers, faithful believers who trust what they see on the screen or trust what they see from alternative sources. That's it. They don't want this third group of skeptics. And so you're misusing, you're trying to use rhetoric to make the case for this threat that you can't prove exists. You're rejecting evidence. You say you're not a believer, I don't know. No, and you're also, you're equivocating. So why do you have to be equivocating? Why do you have to advance logical fallacies? Why do you have to lie in order to promote something that you can't even say definitively that you believe? Like, you're really passionate about this thing you only half-ass believe in. You're very passionate about something that you don't even know if you believe in it or not. Very curious position for you. But my question, which you haven't answered here, is what is your incentive? Like, I understand the incentive of a chemtrail, of a climate change person. You know, they believe that we need to regulate our behaviors to save the planet. But what is your incentive here by spreading a rumor about something that you don't even believe exists? It would be like promoting Jehovah's Witness literature and you're an atheist. Like, it might be true, I don't know. Maybe this is the whole thing, so maybe you should believe this. I don't know if I do or not. But you're advocating it. You're spreading it. So either you are being disingenuous because you know you lost the argument, or you're confused, or you're an agent, you're being paid. Isabel Ann says, we're still on chemtrails. Yeah, we are. Well, James M. is still high on the chemtrails. There's nobody else here, I don't think, who really believes in it. So I got a clip here to play. This is from Breaking Bad, semi-truck shootout scene. And what are we going to see here? Oh, okay. Okay, I remember this scene now. Breaking Bad. This is a documentary about the city that I'm in. This is the scene where, yes, the guy gets shot in his ear. Let me go ahead and play this short clip. I don't want to get a copyright strike. Okay, so he's in a shootout. He's sitting in the truck, and now I think he's lifting his hat up, and he has, oh, would you look at that? A little bit of blood. Looks like they shot his ear right where Trump got shot. Right where Rupert Thorne in Batman got his ear clipped. Right where Tony Soprano got shot. And right where the devil in that one cartoon got shot. The guy at the podium. What was that TV show called? James says, dude, you're a smart dude, don't gaslight. You're the gaslighter, James. You have not addressed the Appleman chart. That's your homework. Your homework is to research condensation trails. If you can't debunk them, then you're not in a position to assert something else. The facts support the existence of condensation trails. It's easy to understand. You cannot predict your chemtrail magic. You cannot predict these invisible planes, these unmarked planes. You cannot offer any kind of predictive capability whatsoever, and you don't even believe in it. So again, I think you could just let it go. I think you're fighting with yourself in this one. And that's fine. That's fine. These are truth or orthodoxies, and I call these guardrails. And these are things that we're deliberately going up against. People get really triggered by this. They get triggered by Mandela effect because they don't want to believe that they've been fooled. But you have been fooled. We all have been. Okay, so this is a great clip here. We're looking at Breaking Bad, semi-truck shootout scene, season 4, episode 4. Fascinating. I want to see if bro thinks he's the former president. Says what, dog? It's even in the same ear. So people noticed this 3 months ago. So 3 days after the shooting, people remembered this. Okay, here's what they were saying before it happened. Remember the plan. Aim high. chances are whoever is in there will be center. The odds of them getting hit on deck is minimal. Okay, fascinating. A lot of people are here because of the Donald Trump shooting. Donald Trump's ear, 7/13/2024, about an hour before I made this comment. Some people went straight over here. Cybrick says the show did some great foreshadowing. This is the type of thing where you could look at it as a predictive programming clue, and the director wouldn't have to know. They would just say, work this into the plot. We need this imagery. We need this. We're building up this particular body of memes, creating a memeplex, a mind virus. Right on the lobe, says Pippi Langstruff. Yep, right on the earlobe. Right where Trump got it, right on the lobe. Again, I would have more respect for Trump as a crisis actor if he had his ear surgically clipped. Like, that would have been cool. Great find. Again, Tony Soprano, Season 1, Episode 12, and that one goes deep. Let's look at that one really fast here. The reason why this one goes deep is that he was drinking orange juice. Season 1, season finale, Episode 12. He's drinking orange juice. It's a failed assassination attempt. And here's Tony with the bandage on his ear. The orange juice connection is a Godfather connection. Francis Ford Coppola, who we've been talking about a lot because of Megalopolis or Magalopolis. A lot of Trump connections there. And the Trump character does get shot in the eye. Raises from the dead, like something out of Revelation 13. But the mob boss connection, the orange juice. In The Godfather's got an assassination attempt where oranges are spilled onto the ground. And he's got an orange peel in his mouth when he takes the poison. So there's something with the orange, which you can obviously connect to Donald Trump, and the orange face paint, which sometimes rubs off on Laura Loomer's cheek. I love how fast people are. Now, let me bring up this point. The fact that minutes after Trump was shot, people were running to Breaking Bad, Season 4, Episode 4, tells you how potent the programming is. This shows you how all the programming, even a little clip like this, sticks in your head, and they can recall it later. Like a callback joke, where a comedian calls back or references a joke from earlier, building on it. Yeah, this is foreshadowing. And this episode was how many years ago? 10, 15? How many years ago was this episode? And here we are, years later. This came out in 2008. 2008. So like 15, 16 years ago, somebody sees this and they recall it instantly when they see Trump getting shot. I think this is saying a lot about the power of predictive programming and about setting the frame of reference, putting things into the realm of possibility. Isabel Ann says, Trump was right about everything was on the screen at the Pennsylvania Town Hall dance party. I heard they played some Elvis at the Donald Trump dance party. Very bizarre and surreal, if you saw that video. I mean, maybe it's not that weird, but he quit taking questions and they just played music for about 20 minutes. And he stood there kind of just swaying. And the teleprompter said, ask a few more questions, and he ignored it. They were just vibing. They even played the song by Oliver Alexander, the song about the rich men from Richmond. Yeah, if somebody posts a link, I'll play it. I'll likely play a few clips. I have to go through my links here. Okay, yeah, here we go. Let me play a clip here. And that's Governor Kristi Noem behind him. They're all having a great time. Some people think it's Adderall. Maybe he just likes the music. I don't know. I would also suggest that this is one of those situations where you had to be there. I think that he does this at Mar-a-Lago, just plays the music and people hang out and listen. It's like Kim Jong-il. I think everybody rises to their feet when he steps in the room. Okay, we talked about Rupert Thorne. Probably alludes to Damien Thorne. And when we talk about politicians and world stage characters having a pre-existence in entertainment, I refer to these characters as predictive programming proxies. Lean Dion says, apparently there was medical emergencies in the crowd, so he paused speaking. Yeah, I think they had 2 emergencies, and he just said, screw it, and just went into the music. Trump is highly entertaining. The whole thing is entertaining. I call it the PSYOP entertainment complex. They want it to be like, you just can't look away. Okay, continuing through the notes. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and play a short clip of what I think the fake stabby scene with the 33-year-old. Since 2021, I've been saying, we need to just go ahead and quarantine the 33-year-olds. You know what would not have happened? A Q shaman wouldn't have led the charge into the Capitol. He was 33. Martin Luther was 33. The Protestantism wouldn't have started. Charles Manson is 33 when he started his cult. Jesus was 33 when they got him. Like, you go down the list. The 33-year-olds. Dave Koresh was 33 when they incinerated him. And there's so many of them where it's just like, you know what? That's a very problematic age. And if we just put everyone away at that particular time. Let me play this short clip. Now, someone did this to be funny. If you don't recognize the music, that's Doom. But it looks exactly like a Doom first-person shooter. And it might as well be. Like, this is the point we're at, where you can't tell if it's real or fake. It's like the desert of the designated real. And you just have to hope that the authorities designated the right thing as real, that they're not duping you. But, yes, this video looked super fake. 33 years old, room 322, 6'6". Something here isn't making sense to me. Jacques says the least realistic part is the police body cam footage. On the floor, eyes closed and bleeding. Yeah, I thought it looked kind of fake. What's the agenda? Like the Tyreek Hill Dolphin player pulled out of his car. Yeah, that was fake. That was staged. And it was meant to resonate with the recently released Rebel Ridge on Netflix, which opened up with a similar scene. Michael Slauson said, only morons like this deny geoengineering. Now, that's a little ironic. And that's because geoengineering exists, but it's not what you think. The conspiracy theories about geoengineering misrepresent what geoengineering is. Geoengineering is actually climate change remediation. It's a fake cure for a fake problem, and it's ineffective, and it doesn't really exist. Geoengineering isn't really a thing. It's just it's like a buzzword, and no one can define it. But if you look up the definition on Wiki, it has been defined. It's a subset of climate science. So nobody's denying it, but I'm denying your definition of it. And clearly, you've never looked it up. Techhead303 says, I've listened to your show enough to know that you're one of the biggest bullshitters going. You bell end. Thank you for that. I don't know what a bell end is. David Polk says, I enjoy the think tank format. The painting of the big picture is most interesting to me. Let's Go says, a helpful concept is the idea that these boogeymen are simply characters. Imagine being afraid of a movie villain. The absurdity is self-evident. How do you know you're looking at a character? They're projected onto our lives like a movie we didn't pay to watch. Good point there. I call them hyperstitions. It's like superstitions, like werewolves. But a hyperstition is something that is reinforced, like an echo chamber effect. Everyone reinforces the superstition because it's part of the closed system of ideas. It's part of your mental map. It's a hyperstition. Okay, let's see here. Uki says, you called it. Let's see what we called. North Carolina man arrested amid FEMA security threats related to Helen relief efforts.
Of Hurricane Helene devastated western North Carolina, and FEMA's efforts to help survivors continues to be the center of misinformation spreading all over social media.
The agency says it was forced to pause aid in several areas over the weekend over reported threats toward responders. Ashe County Sheriff says some FEMA operations were paused in the county.
So all this anti-FEMA stuff originates on X, and it's all by design, and they're framing conspiracy theorists en masse. That's exactly what they're doing. Jacques says geoengineering is man-made climate change. Well, let's look up the definition of geoengineering. It's an umbrella term for carbon dioxide removal or solar radiation modification when applied at a planetary scale. So it's an umbrella term for climate change remediation. And as far as does it exist or does it do what people say? Well, no, not really. It's kind of a huge scam. But it presupposes the existence of the climate crisis. It does not refer to weather modification in the sense that chemtrail believers think it does. Plain Dakota says, did you see the black guy who was surrounded by like 5 white guys walking through a neighborhood? Yeah, it didn't look good, did it? But he was being passive-aggressive and trolly. I thought he was some kind of live streamer making money. Ted Stryker says, Q Shaman could not be locked up because his cellmates would complain about his roadkill odor. Yeah, the guy dressed up in the animal skins never spent a day in jail. He went off to some kind of, like, shill boot camp. He became very mediagenic. He came out this like new age professor, like David Icke Light, and he was always into that. The Q Shaman was always talking about how we're moving into the 5th dimension, and we're gonna have free money. The Great Awakening's coming, adrenochrome, all that stuff. And he's the one who had the sign Q sent me, and yet he served 27 months, and he never bothered to say, hey, who is this Q person? Like, he never... You think if anybody would want to know who Q is, it would be the shaman. Plain Dakota says, it seems like they're running the George Floyd template. Yeah, it is. It's part of this building up of a martyr. It's this martyr that is representative of, or represents, I think, the class, the lower class, or the victims of systemic oppression. Okay, let's move on. So North Carolina man, I did call this too. I said the new threat is going to be disease X, and it's going to manifest as anger and rage caught on X by the right-wingers, who then become violent in the real world. And this started with Richard Card shortly after X became X, and I said disease X is going to be the mind virus pandemic that necessitates the shutdown of the internet. The blackout. They don't have to break anything. They don't have to bomb anything. They will get the public's acquiescence in censoring the shared space of cyberspace, this commons. And there was a recent article about how Musk is not being allowed to spread his rockets further throughout California. He wanted to expand his operations, and they're rejecting it. SpaceX is suing California regulators now because of their anti-Musk bias in rocket rejection. So these California officials have cited his politics in rejecting SpaceX launches. And note the correlation here, because I've been pointing out that Elon Musk is a fall guy for free speech. He's being blamed with flooding our shared commons of cyberspace with mind junk. Similarly, he is filling low Earth orbit with space junk. And these things correlate. They're trying to get the public to see in broad terms, like this is like a story, a big narrative, that one person with too much power can negatively impact the collective, and so they must be stopped. So disease X represents the consequence of unfettered free speech, and of course Musk has been made into a bad guy. So when the disease X outbreak causes a lot of violence and destruction and threats against the weatherman, they're going to say, okay, for the good of society, we have to regulate this more. Ted Stryker says Musk's rocket footage was amazingly silly. Yeah, well, the rocket is primarily, I mean, it's a symbol. It's the obelisk. It's the symbol of state power. It's an ancient symbol. The burning obelisk. And space is the new heaven. But the sky, if you look at the symbolism here from a esoteric perspective, the earth god has been represented forever by the obelisk. The goddess is the night sky. You see Isis with the robe of stars. And so the idea is that the union of the god and goddess, the sky and the earth, and their union results in the birth of the sun each day. It's just personification. But outer space is the new heaven in the sense, and so the obelisk, the rocket flying into the heavens, it's just allegory. That's all it is. They're not going to send you to Mars. That's never going to happen, if Mars is even a landable place, but rather Mars is the ideal they want you to accept. Like, this is the way we need to live here on Earth. This is the ideal. It's idealism. And it's older than the space program. If you look at the book Red Star, it came out in Russia in like 1909. It was about scientists, Russian scientists going to Mars and building the perfect communist society. And then Earthbound scientists decide, hey, this is how we need to... Well, they go out and they check it out and they say, this is the way we need to live here on Earth. They've perfected it. The perfect system. It's idealism. It's utopianism. Martian utopianism. That's the future. In fact, Jeff Bezos gave this away at a speech he was giving in 2017 where he said that we cannot continue to live this way because of the climate. We will have to enter a civilization of stasis, and if you want freedom and liberty, you have to go to outer space. Just got this notice from X. Block is changing soon. If your posts are set to public, accounts that you have blocked will be able to view them. They just won't be able to engage. So I tweeted at George News, haha, because very soon I will be able to read his crappy tweets. George News is the person responsible for this JFK Jr. mania. And it's all a big ruse. It really is. I have so many examples of this, but we're going to stick to the agenda here. We have a few more minutes. I wanted to stop before 10. I was thinking maybe we could jump into Discord right after this for about another hour and record episode 3 of the IPS Deep Think Tank. So if you didn't get a chance to call in tonight, you have something to say, you want to add on to what we talked about tonight, now would be a good time. So after this. And if you missed the last one, I'll put a link in the chat. This is the IPS Deep Think Tank episode 2, and that was on the 12th. So my intention is to record these about twice per week, and these are recorded in the Discord server. Isabel says, tomorrow's full moon, 33 days until Pluto leaves Capricorn for the last time in our lives. Ready to see the whole system crumble in the next month. So Pluto entered, I think Pluto was in 27 degrees Capricorn when America was founded, July 4th, 1776, and it returned to that position on 2/2/2022. And we were talking about the significance of Pluto's return and how it happens once in an empire, then the empire crumbles. I think we can correlate Pluto with Hades, the underworld, and Hades releases the Kraken. Will Sommer posted, Russell Brand remade himself as a right-wing Christian influencer and is now selling magical amulets that protect you from Wi-Fi signals and other evil energies, only $239. Hey, James M., the chemtrail guy, are you a 5G phobic as well? I notice a lot of these things come in clusters. And in this case, this is something I've seen before where they're doing something proactive. Nobody's invented the chemtrail mask, but people do have anti-5G or 5G protective garments. And Russell Brand has this new thing where he became Catholic or Christian and he's baptizing people. I saw pictures, a bunch of guys in man buns and diapers in the water dipping each other under. And I'm just like, I wouldn't want to be downstream from this guy. But yeah, here he is selling magical amulets.
Just back from Narnia, where I had a holiday, Mr. Tumnus, Aslan, all those guys. And as you know, airports are places full of Wi-Fi and all sorts of evil energies. Think of all the phones out there, all of the signals, corruptible and corrupting. Luckily, I wear this magical amulet from...
All right, magical amulet, and he's really selling it. Corrupting signals. Now, this conversion is fake. Same with Nick Fuentes, Candace Owen, anybody on the right that suddenly converted to Christian or Catholic, MTG, they're all chanting Christ is King. They're all faking it. And this is part of the dialectic where the left is in the cult of nasotology. They believe in scientism, and they believe in the vax as salvation from this new concept of sin called the virus. The other side doesn't believe in and refuses treatment for. So the unsaved. And the unsaved believe in the archaic concept of sin. They believe in the traditional views. So the MAGA represents the traditional, the utopian view of the past, whereas the progressive is the utopian future. And everybody on the right, everybody Q adjacent, they all adopt this idea or this belief system in which they're leaning towards the traditional paradigm. So they're converting because it's part of the program. It's about the moral panic, and the moral panic unifies them against the other side and binds them together. That's why they want to quarantine, get out of the cities, the whole thing, shutting off Hollywood. The idea on the right here is the moral panic is a unifier. The other side, it's the pandemic. The pandemic is actually intrinsic to this worldview. It's what gives the priesthood total power down to the level of the individual. They have a compelling state interest now in knowing what's in your blood. And they're going deeper and deeper. Post 9/11, it's, what's in your pants? They got a scanner, what's beneath your clothes. 2020, now it's what's in your blood. What's coming next will be what's in your mind, what's on your browser history. It's going to go into mind viruses. And in order for us to accept the mind virus and the thought crime, they had to teach us. They had to train us and condition us to accept or to understand the pandemic model, the quarantine model, the saved versus unsaved dialectic. So in my opinion, they used 2020 to prepare us for the future of mind virus quarantine and sanitation. That it was all along, the intent there was to program us to accept this paradigm. And, I would describe, for example, so we're talking about religions, and each side is really religious. One side is scientism, nasotology, the other side's traditional. But like Scientology is a good example of a religious paradigm built upon quarantine, where you have the saved who have cleared their minds of mind viruses, which they call engrams, and then you have the unsaved, who are all suppressive and carriers of mind virus. And they call these mind viruses engrams, and you have to go to the church to purify. Those who don't purify are part of the problem. And as you become part of the group, you're taught that if you go to those who haven't been saved, you can catch it, and you can bring engrams to everybody else. So it becomes a form of quarantine. It's a religious paradigm based on quarantine and locking down, or essentially quarantining or saving the world, even if that means, of course, everybody has to go through the process. Everybody. Plain Dakota says, I stopped EMF paranoia when I stopped smoking cabbage in 2019. I never made that connection. Because, there's another facet. We talk about the PSY war, psychological warfare. and drugs are a part of it. And there's been a huge change here in the last few years where the culture seems to have shifted, where every other gas station is converted to a dispensary. It's just recreational weed. Everybody's smoking. And I noticed that the energy drinks have all kind of changed into non-sugar and infused with like a lot of B12 and stuff. So I'm thinking this looks like alchemy on a mass scale, where perhaps they're conditioning people for the next lockdown, where we're maybe psychologically prepared for a more immersive media experience, and perhaps even destroying our cognition on some level, where it's easier to fall into delusion since we're all just immersed in media. Does JL believe in the right? You don't have to believe in the left or right to be categorized as such. You're in the political horseshoe if you're in the MSM box. If you believe in the basic paradigm, you're in it. There's no alternative. The question is, do you lean left or right? Do you go woke or truther, or do you stay in just Normieville? And if you're religious leaning and you're anti-media, you're therefore on the right. If you believe in chemtrails, you're on the right. If you're anti-vax, pro-gun, closed border, if you think aliens are demons, you're on the right. I wrote a book on this. It was really just a collection of my blogs from 2022 called A Schism in Everything. And I'm going to bring that book out and go through some of this because it's worth really looking at and recognizing this perfect division. Needles versus guns, the dialectic, how the gun, active, male, associated with toxic masculinity on the right, and the left is pro-vax, and the needle, by contrast, is a passive symbol. It takes passivity to receive it. And the left is associated with, of course, feminism. So the feminism and toxic masculinity, needles versus guns, or then you have this other dialectic where the left is like, they want to take your guns, and the right's like, they're going to take our guns. And the right is trying to regulate women and their bodies. So it's like wombs and guns. So if you connect these things, the male-female divide, feminism, and toxic masculinity gun culture, they're going to take our guns. Yeah, that's a direct attack at your sense of security. It's designed to make you insecure. Like on a psychological level here, I think they're playing deep mind games here. Remember, Sigmund Freud, Edward Bernays are both relatives of the first CEO and co-founder of Netflix. So we're looking at perception management, but also a deep understanding of our subconscious and what motivates us and what terrifies us. So I think these are primal fears. The gun is an obvious male symbol, and the womb grab, the attempt to regulate the womb, these are deeply personal and upsetting threats to people. I think these are meant to be. So they're never going to grab your guns. They're never going to force vax anybody. But these are always going to be fears that people have. James M., does he believe the mainstream box? No, he doesn't. JL is 100% anti-mainstream. He's one of the foremost decoders of fake news. I mean, what we do, which is similar, is we both analyze the big picture, but his focus is more like on the news, CNN and Fox, whatever's on TV, whereas we're looking more at movies and video games. All right, James M. says you need Christ. Okay, well, look, you're not supposed to lie in your religion, so stop pushing chemtrails, and then maybe we can talk about that. But I'm not going to take religious advice from somebody who lies to me and manipulates words, engages in sophistry. That's very satanic. If you really think about lying, manipulation, sleight of mind, logical fallacies, and sophistry, by very definition, that's like some forked-tongued behavior, not very Christ-like. Okay, so we're going to head out and go into the Discord server. If you want a link, I'll push it below. I'm going to spam a link, so just click the link if you want to join us in Discord. We're going to record for about an hour the IPS Deep Think Tank episode number 3. This is Fepe Akbar featuring Lean Dion by Allergic to Bullshit.
fuck with your deception. Keep it real, that's a profession. Like the whole world is pretending. Found the truth around the penguin. Get a gang on with a blessing. All the other gang are stressing. RPSC on a nesting. Only real one's gonna get this. Fake ones don't accept this. They can miss the message. Timbuktu got bodies, yeah. Find them in our records. Auto host a message. Squad are represented. Killing you with knowledge, yeah. The uppers getting deaded. Oh, you're so affected, cause we're so effective. Let go of your worries, yeah, the whole thing is a slitter. We got it and we get it, offering refreshment. Level up your conscience, yeah, it's honestly the essence. This wave is uncontainable, facts are undebatable. You lanes are unrelatable, give a fuck about saving you. We could keep on playing you, you just keep complaining too. Game is unescapable, unless you're with the gang or no. Messing with the penguin, we're messing with the penguin. Messing with the penguin, 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 fucking with the penguins, yeah, with the penguins. I'm coming with a vengeance, trying to make you come to your senses. Forget the general consensus, just pay attention.
Hey Tim, did you see them